Welcome to our presentation with Gil on DNA. If anyone has any questions, please put them in the chat room and we'll attend to them after Gil's presentation. This session is being recorded and everyone will be on mute except Gil for the presentation. And Gil, or Helen, sorry, Helen, will you please introduce Gil?
Sure. Well, I first came into contact with Gil at the IAJGS conference last year, and I was very impressed with his talk. Gil's been recently retired. He's been a genealogist for over 40 years with 15 years of experience in DNA and genetic genealogy. He's been recognised as someone who can clarify ethnicity estimates and help you understand what the matches mean and how to know which ones to respond to and what to expect. In 2021, Gil was named the chair of the genealogy committee of the Columbus, Ohio Jewish Historical Society. He's on the program committee of the IAJGS, as well as chair of the mentoring program. Gil grew up in the Chicago area and has a college degree from New York Institute of Technology. He's tested at all 4 major companies and is a project manager at FTDNA of 3 projects, including Jewish R1B. Gil was business development executive for Train, traveling nationally in North America for nearly 11 years, making presentation to Fortune 250 corporations. Gil is high energy, humorous, and speaks clearly and makes sure that the audience is engaged and participates. As I mentioned, I heard his presentation to the 2021 IAJGS conference and I thoroughly enjoyed it and I learned a lot, and I'm sure you will too. Over to you, Gil.
Thank you, Helen. Thank you, Max. As long as I see, well, some of the people here, can you raise your hands if you've taken DNA tests? And put your hands down. Next question, are you confused? Most of you? Okay, so let me do this. Let me minimize this and close that and go to my screen sharing here. Bear with me a second. That was the wrong button. Bear with me. Okay, come on. And that's what I wanted. And okay. There we go. I lost the screen with where to share. There we go. Okay, bear with me a second. And then I'm going to put my PowerPoint up. And here we go. All right, so my name is Gil Bardige. You've heard some background on me. I want to get right to this. This program I entitled Help. I just got my autosomal DNA results and I'm confused and it's updated. Now, I did send to Max the handout, and in the handout, it's going to have the terminology I use. It will have the examples of the formulas. So if you are trying to write everything down, it's on the handout, okay? And so what I want you to do is to follow along with me. I wrote this program for people who are beginners, well, maybe even intermediates, and also all of the people who tested a while ago who just want to get back into understanding what DNA or genetic genealogy could do for them, but they believe it's a daunting task. So we're going to go forward, and I know you're going to be happy at the end. Here we go.
Just a second. Did you want me to put the handout on now?
You could put the handout on the, do you have a link for the handout?
I've got the actual PDF.
Right, I know that. Do you want to are you going to put it on your website, or you wanted
people to follow along?
Well, you could send it to them. Yeah, sure.
Well, I can't do that now, but I will after the meeting.
Okay. All right.
Sorry.
No problem. All right. So remember what we're talking about. Right there, you see a picture of, well, my family tree, or a replica of it anyway. So our goal as genealogists is to flesh out our family tree. And so we're looking forward to using the ethnicity estimates and the matches that we have in order to find people who fit on our tree. Okay. But the key part is not just finding people, but where do they fit on your tree? So, okay, now that we know that a good number of you have been or are using DNA in your genealogy, one of the questions that I have for you now is, have you tested at all 4 companies, which we call here fishing in all 4 ponds? Okay, if you haven't, we're going to want you to do that. We're going to talk about that some more. Okay. And one of the other things is, if you've tested at each of these companies, have you added your surnames and the towns or shtetls and the countries where your ancestors were located and where they came from? If you haven't done that, please do so. I don't mean right now, but at some point, please do so, because otherwise you're doing all the work looking for people. Let people find you. Now, as Helen said, I've tested at all 4 companies. Well, I've actually tested at 3 companies and uploaded my data to 1 company, but the idea is the same thing. And by the time I finish, I end up with over 200,000 matches. So if you've tested or uploaded to all 4 companies, okay, you probably have the same thing. And then I get emails every week. I get notifications, I get emails from people, and they say, do you recognize any of these surnames? Do you recognize any of the towns? And the answer usually is no. This is a bit daunting. It is a big challenge. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to simplify this for you. We're going to manage people's expectations here. And at the end, you're going to understand what to do. So first thing I want you to do is everybody take a deep breath. And we're going to get started. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about managing expectations. And in order to do that, I developed a series of rules to help people understand what DNA can and can't do for them. So the first one is DNA, and again, or genetic genealogy. I use both terms. They mean for our purposes the same thing. Okay. It's a new science. It's only been around for 20-ish years. I mean, from a commercial standpoint, in the labs, it's been around for decades, but only for the last 20 some odd years. It's still a new science, and everything is changing rapidly. Look at what family tree DNA did last July. They changed everything, not only what their pages looked like, but their algorithms, their calculations, their databases, everything changed, which brings us to rule 2. Everything that I'm going to tell you today, everything that other people will tell you, everything that you read on Facebook or any of the blogs or any of the conferences you go to or any of the webinars you watch is all based upon what we know right now. And then you have to look at rule number 1. Rule number 3 is, I kind of already mentioned this, you have to have a tree, because you're going to have matches. And if you don't have a really good tree, it's kind of hard to figure out how people are related to you. And rule 4, and we're going to talk about autosomal DNA, which is not the Y DNA. It is not the mitochondrial mtDNA. And although X chromosome is part of autosomal, I'm not including it in the discussion. If you have questions about it, I'll be glad to answer it. But autosomal DNA is random. What you get from your parents is roughly 50%. Now, my friend Shelley Dardashti from Tracing the Tribe said, Gil, it's just like chicken soup. And I said, that's great. Can I use that in my talk? She goes, yeah. And then 2 years later, she goes, I didn't tell you it was chicken soup. I told you it was stew. And I'm like, oh, okay. So what we're going to use is the analogy of autosomal DNA being chicken soup. So This serving bowl here, and I'm circling in red, is, let's say it's the DNA from both of your parents that is served out to you and to, let's say, a sibling, assuming you have a sibling. Now, what you will notice is that the two bowls look alike, but the contents are different. The amount of DNA, or the amount of chicken soup, and all the ingredients that go in it, the segments of DNA, are not the same. They're very similar. A noodle is a noodle. Chicken is chicken. Carrots are carrots. But you may have gotten more carrots, but your sibling got bigger carrots. You may have gotten more chicken and your sibling got hardly any. Your noodles are longer on some areas, and some areas your siblings are. And I draw this analogy that all of the ingredients in the chicken soup are like the segments of your DNA on the chromosomes. I tell you this because you need to test your siblings, assuming you have them. If your parents are around, you really want to test them and their siblings. Why? Chicken soup. So let's look at Rule 5. And Rule 5 is, I want you to expect the exceptions to all the formulas and guidelines that I give you. Why? Because it's random. And Rule 6 is, we are all about segment length first, second, and third. And by segment length being important, it's because we come from an endogamous population. And endogamy doesn't mean that your grandparents were first cousins. What it means is all of the DNA for the last hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years of all of our relatives marrying and having children within the tribe, within the clan, some of it sticks around. Much of it is smaller segments, but some of it sticks around. And because of that, we have more DNA in our systems than, or segments of DNA in our systems, not more DNA, more segments of DNA in our systems than people who are not from an endogamous population. And therefore, the testing companies don't measure what our relationships are by segments. They measure it by the amount of DNA shared. Well, we share more DNA for a given relative, so it makes more distant relatives look closer, which means all of those ones that say third to fifth cousin, they're a little bit further back than that. So let's continue. Okay, so one of the things that's important to realize here is you're becoming citizen scientists. You may not realize this. You're really doing data analysis and interpretation just like detectives do. And therefore, I have to remind you, you have to follow the evidence. Very important. You cannot draw conclusions based upon what we want them to be. You have to follow the evidence. And the DNA doesn't lie. All of these people that you are getting as matches, you're related to. They are all your cousins. I get emails all the time. People go, it says we're fifth to distant cousins. And I go, great, we're cousins. And they go, oh, okay, how are we cousins? I said, aha, that's the trick. The DNA doesn't lie, but the results can be misinterpreted, just like in genealogy, where you're looking at ship's manifest and census records, etc., and it's close, but it may or may not be accurate. Now, if you're new to this or relatively new to this, it's very important that you understand the ethics in dealing with genetic genealogy. And that is, you have to be prepared that either you, your matches, or people that you're talking to about this may learn secrets that either you or others don't want public or didn't want public. So there's something called an NPE, a non-paternal event, or not parent expected, or it's also called an MPE, which is a misattributed parental event. There's lots of reasons for that. Yeah, Jewish people, excuse the expression, stuck around even while they were married or before they were married. Okay. Or you may find out that people are adopted, or you may find out that members of your family are criminals, or they may find out you are. Now, the other part, based on everything I'm telling you, is that genetic genealogy is not standalone. It is a tool to use in your genealogical tool belt. It provides you with clues. It can help you confirm or deny relationships. But one thing I learned in business, and I was in sales and marketing for too many years, but I was in sales and marketing, and one of my first bosses said to me, you know, you're really good at what you do, but sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. And in this, it's very important. And you also have to be patient. Why? Best example I can give you is literally last April, I got an email alert from Ancestry.com, you have a second cousin. And I'm going, yeah, I know. And I looked at that name and I had no idea who she was. Now, I know all my second cousins. I grew up with them. I've been to bar mitzvahs and bat mitzvahs. They come to mine. I've been to weddings. We're family. I know them all. I had no idea who this was. But I had to wait until she tested to find out that my tree was not quite as done as I thought it was. Let's continue. So what we're looking at here is a chart, and I hope it's pretty clear to everybody, but it's some basic information that's going to help you understand. So I consider myself generation 0, and my parents generation 1, grandparents 2, great-grandparents 3. And by the way, I gave you some of my abbreviations, so if I use them somewhere, you'll understand what they mean. And then the approximate percentage of DNA you get from each one of these relatives. Now, we say approximate because I've never seen people have exactly the same 50% DNA or exactly that percentage from their parents. It's off a little bit. And grandparents are within a range, but you'll notice as you go further back in generations and time, the amount of DNA dilutes about 50%. The segments split apart and they recombine. It's a recombinant DNA, that's what it's also called, and they recombine randomly. So you and your siblings, as I showed you by chicken soup, don't get the same thing. Now, for each one of these generations, these are the maximum possible number of, let's call them bio ancestors, okay, or blood ancestors. And what you will notice here is the sweet spot for genetic genealogy is here. It's 3 to 5 generations back. And the reason it's that is because further back, especially if your family comes from the former Russian Empire, it's hard to get the documentation to make your tree go further back than that. And some people, there are exceptions to that. Rule number 5 of exceptions. There are exceptions to that. But it's important to understand this is the sweet spot. Now, remember, I told you I get emails, and I'll bet you get emails all the time from people who say, do you recognize, it says we're second to fourth cousins. Do you recognize these surnames? Now, I've been doing genealogy for 43 years. I've gotten pretty good at it. I need some more records, but I only know the surnames, confirmed surnames of 7 of my 8 great-grandparents. I also, therefore, only know 7 of my great-great-grandparents and 7 of my 32 third great-grandparents, which is the sweet spot again. What that means is when someone sends me a list of names and maybe the towns, it might have been you who sent it to me, you end up going, well, I only know 7 of the 32. So it's entirely possible that 25 of the surnames you sent me, they might be the surnames of my third great-grandparents, but I have no way of proving it. So you are related to those people. The question is how. Let's continue. So you also need a little bit of history. People ask me all the time, I did my DNA test. Where is my ancient Israeli DNA. Well, ancient Israel, here is the diaspora, the last one, and ancient Israel goes back, here's the period of the patriarchs, etc. So it's somewhere in that area there. But autosomal DNA is only good about 350-ish years plus or minus from the present. You can't get back here. The segments are too small. So I just wanted everybody to understand that. So why do we test? Well, most people test because they want to know if they want to wear a lederhosen, a kilt, a yarmulke, whatever. And so to show you the idea of randomness, I wanted to show you the 3 Bardige boys. Yep, this was me too many years ago. This is my brother Art, he's the oldest, and my brother Steve. And I'm going to use my heritage as an example of the ethnicity estimates and one reason why you need to test your siblings. Again, if your parents are around and or their siblings, test them. Why? Remember, DNA dilutes 50% each generation. So I had my DNA tested, my brother Art's DNA tested, and my brother Steve's DNA tested. Surprise, surprise, we're chicken soup, okay? We're brothers, we look very similar, but it's not the same. So on mine here on the left, I've got 5% Baltic to match up with my 90% Ashkenazi Jewish. Well, but Gil, Jews have lived in the Baltic states for generations and generations and generations. Well, remember I talked about the NPE, a non-paternal or non-expected event? There you go. Now, am I going to do something about this? Well, this is probably 200-ish years ago. You know, when I get bored and I have nothing to do, which won't ever occur, but I'm not going to do anything with it. I also am 4.6% Sephardic Jewish, but they listed as North African. And part of the reason is because North African and Sephardim share enough details in the reference populations that it's hard to decipher between them. Now, Art's got Baltic, but it's less. He also has some Sephardic North African, less than I do. Oh, and he's got 5% Italian. Now, it's possible that this Italian, by the way, now we know why we like Italian food so much, thanks to Art, but you look at this and you go, well, the 5% Italian could be Sephardim, maybe. But then I go and look, and Steve is 2.2%, but his is listed as North African. Remember, it's hard to tell. Remember, see, the ethnicity estimates are based upon what's called reference populations, and every one of the testing companies have different reference populations, which is why there is no Sephardim listed at Ancestry or 23andMe, because those reference populations are just not used by those companies. They also have different algorithms, and they look at slightly different amounts of DNA. The SNPs, SNP small s, single nucleotide polymorphisms. I know I'm getting technical. I know a little bit of technical stuff. They use a little bit of that. It's not a big deal difference, but there's some. And what I want to show you here, and it's important, Steve has no Baltic. Steve has no Italian, which means if only Steve tested, we wouldn't know any of the rest. If only Art tested, we wouldn't know about the significant amount of Baltic. I hope you follow. The other last thing about ethnicity estimates is wait 18 to 24 months, they're going to change them. Why? They change the reference populations, they learn more, the computers get better, the chips get better, and etc. Now, if you look at Ancestry DNA, well, it's fairly similar. They call us European Jewish, and surprise, surprise, they show us your family's ancestors settled somewhere in here. No kidding. 23andMe looks the same. They call us Ashkenazi Jewish. And Family Tree DNA changed theirs, and it looks very similar. So ethnicity estimates, the important part of ethnicity estimate is if you or your matches are not 100%. are not 75%. If you are, well, 0, if you're some number 50% or less, it's significant because it can help you in your research on your matches, because they're not going to be as related to each other as the 100% Jewish. There's still endogamy there. It's still in effect. Let me show you what endogamy looks like. So here is a chart I made. This is from the survey from my friend Lara Diamond's public survey that she did back in 2019. And what I did here is I wanted to show you, for the given relationships, the amount of DNA that people who are Jewish share versus the general population, as referenced by the shared centimorgan project done by Blaine Bettinger. So for a given relationship, let's say first cousins, the average amount of DNA in the general population is 866 what are called centimorgans, or CM. Those are the amount of DNA, or the measurement of the amount of DNA. Okay. Whereas if you are Jewish, the average is 929. But it's important to understand that there is a range. And what this does is it makes DNA, genetic genealogy, a science that acts more like an art. So when you see on Facebook, someone says, I share 135 centimorgans with someone, and someone says, oh, that is a third cousin. Well, maybe, because of the ranges. Okay. Now, the next part of this is, remember they told you the sweet spot on another thing? Well, here is the sweet spot, or part of it. Looking at the amount of DNA. Now, since you know, theoretically, most of your second cousins and most of your first cousins, these are the beginnings of people you don't know, which are called unknown matches. But for some reason, in DNA, up to 10% of third cousins, it's hard to write with a mouse, bear with me, up to 10% of third cousins can share 0. I'm going to let that sink in. Somewhere a little bit less, oops, wrong one, a little bit less than 50% of those people who are fourth cousins can share 0. Which means it's not definitive. It is very hard to determine. What you're doing is hard. I've got to tell you, it's hard. If you've had any success, I'm very proud of you. Okay, this hopefully is going to help you, but I want you to understand you can share 0. And let me give you a real brief example of this. I've got my third cousin Sheldon, and my third cousin Sheldon, it took me 7 years to get Sheldon to test. I mean, and he's one of the target people you need to test because he's further out on your branches. He can help you find other people. And he finally tested, he tested 23andMe. And I look at it and I go, Sheldon, did you get the results? He goes, yeah. I said, what does it say? He goes, I don't know. I said, what do you mean you don't know? He said, it doesn't say anything. I said, it has to. Because it doesn't. So I signed on and I'm looking and I go, Sheldon, did you sign on with one of these cryptic usernames? He goes, no. Now I know Sheldon and I are related. So I transferred his data because 23andMe limits you to about 1,500 matches. It just may not have gone far enough back. So I go and I look at my heritage and we transferred it and we find that we shared a whopping 52 centimorgans. Now average, remember this, average for a third cousin's 122. We shared 52. And he also shared 52 with my first cousin, his third cousin, Gary. He shared the same thing. That's great. He shared 0 with each of my brothers. He shared 0 with the remaining 6 first cousins. So I tell you that sometimes one reason you can't find people is they haven't tested. And the other reason you can't find people is because you don't share DNA with them. So Why do you test your siblings and your cousins? Because if only my brother Steve had tested, we would never have found out how Sheldon was related. Okay. The other one that's on here is this number 20, and this is called the longest segment. I want you to remember 20. All right, let's continue. So let's move on to, well, let's go to family tree DNA. Now, if you've tested, how many people, raise your hands, have tested a family tree DNA? I can't see, I'm just asking, making sure you're there. Okay, raise your hands. And now we're going to click on Family Finder Matches. Now understand, I am not going to show you all the details on how you use the Family Tree DNA website. There's webinars and YouTube videos to do this. So you would go to your Family Finder, you click on that, and this is the formula, the first formula I'm going to give you for Family Tree DNA to prioritize unknown matches. Now, I had to change this because everybody kept saying to me, well, my second cousin doesn't fit the formula. I know, this is for unknown matches. What we're trying to do here by process of elimination is get the low-hanging fruit. You will miss some people. There will be exceptions to these rules. But we have to get you from the 30,000 matches you have at Family Tree DNA with something you can use. Okay, it'll be more fun that way. So here's what we're going to do. At Family Tree DNA, okay, we're going to tell you the first thing to do is ignore the cousin estimates, which is really hard to do because they shove it in your face. The second to fourth cousin, second to third cousin, third to fifth cousin, fifth to distant cousin, and they show it to you for all these people. I want you to try and ignore them. And instead, I want you to look at what they call the longest block, okay? And longest block, what they call a block, is the same thing, I'm sorry, I can't write so well here, as a segment, okay? So the longest block, I want you to have one segment, one block that is greater than or equal to 20 centimorgans. And I'll show you where that data is. Now, 20 is the absolute minimum. If you have someone with the longest block who's less than 20, I don't care how much DNA they share with you, put them aside, ignore them. You are related to them, but so far back, it will not be on your tree. So longest block needs to be 20 or greater. Honestly, I would be much happier if it was more than 30. But I'll take 20. Then I want two segments or two blocks that are greater than or equal to 10. Now, I would prefer that this number was 15 on one of them and 12 on the other. But again, we're trying to pick the low-hanging fruit, and I'm going to look at 20 plus 10 plus 10. And then I'm going to say I also plus want to share 100 centimorgans or more. Now, 100 centimorgans is about 1.3% of the amount of DNA. Okay, it's far back. I don't want to go farther back than this. Okay, what if they have 99? Fine, do 99. Well, they have 98. Look, this is your match list. You want to do 98, 97. I'm trying to give you a cutoff point to make it easier. The last item here is something called triangulation. And triangulation means that you share the same segment or segments with a known match as you do with the unknown match. And your known match also shares that same segment with your unknown match. So it forms a triangle. Now, the key to it is the segments are not going to be exactly lined up. They just won't. Okay. Now, in order to find triangulation of family tree DNA, you have to look for their matrix, enter in the names of your matches, your known matches and your unknown matches, and they will tell you if it triangulates. They won't tell you how. Let's continue. So this is what my match list looks like. Well, looks like yours. And this is a match list of unknown matches. So the first thing I'm going to do, my mother would kill me, but the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to cheat. Remember, I gave you the formula, 20 plus 10 plus 10 plus 100. But I'm going to have you cheat a little bit because the match list at Family Tree DNA doesn't give you all that information. Okay? So what I'm going to have you do is look at this. It's the two columns labeled longest block, which also means longest segment, and shared DNA. And what you're going to do, remember longest block, I want it to be 20 or greater, and the amount of shared DNA, I want that to be 100 or greater. And when you find someone with that, on the left-hand side, you're going to put a check mark right here. So this match does 123, and the longest block is 30. I put a check mark. And the only other thing I'm going to have you do is on the right-hand side, I want you to always add notes on your testing sites. You click here, you add a note, and you list what this is, okay? So that you will know other match, you don't keep looking at the same match over, oh, look at that button, it's over and over again. Just if you have a note, it means you already looked at it. You don't have to look at it again. And then you go to the next one. Next one is 114 and 18. So is this relationship here a priority match to me, yes or no? Remember the formula, 20 plus 10 plus 10 plus 100. But Gil, the other 10, the 10s don't show. All right, remember, we're cheating here. Longest block, shared DNA. Is this person a good match, priority match for me, yes or no? No. Why not? Where's the 20? Let's go to the next one. 113 and 28. Yep. 104 and 20. Okay. 104 and 46. Yep. 118. Yes or no? No. Why not? No 20. 92 and 19. Yes or no? Nope. Now, 91 and 30. My first reaction to 91 and 30 is no. But this is your match. If you get bored and this person would have been nice enough to give you some surnames and stuff, boy, I hope that's not you, surnames and stuff, the answer here is maybe my second level. Why? Might be a second level, not a priority match, because this is not 20, it's 30. You follow? So then you go to the next page. You've clicked on here, you've done your check, and it takes you to something called the chromosome browser. Now, people either love chromosome browsers or they hate chromosome browsers. And some of the things you have to understand about chromosome browsers. The first is that all of the chromosomes are of a different length, which means a very long segment down here and an equally long segment up here are not going to be the same number of centimorgans. You actually have to click on them and look at what the number is. The other part is when segments line up here, people tell me, look, Gil, they triangulate. No, this is not triangulation. This is called overlap. What this means is this person matches you at this point, and this person matches you at this point. It has nothing to do with them matching each other, nothing. Now, the other part that I want to go over with you here is if you hate chromosome browsers, all you do is click right here on detailed segment data. Now, let me stop for a second. If you're really good at spreadsheets, you can download the segment data from all of these 7 matches. You could even download it from all your matches if you want. And then you could put it into, it comes as a CSV file, a comma separated values file, and you could save it to Excel or Google Sheets and manipulate it all you want to. And if you are not familiar with spreadsheets, you might not want to do that. So, but for everybody, you can click on detailed segment data and it takes you to a new sheet. And it takes you to a chart or a table of exactly the same data as what's in the chromosome browser. It lists for every single given match that you checked, it lists the chromosome, it lists the start location and the end location, where that segment started and where it ended is here. Oh, by the way, if you're a little bit more advanced and you use tools like DNA Painter, let's call this a sidebar here for a little bit more advanced people. This is the data that you copy and paste into DNA Painter. So it's pretty easy to get it. Okay, let's continue. And the amount of centimorgans. Now, these are the blocks, okay, or the segments. And we're looking for, and this is where you get the 20 plus 10 plus 10. So what we're going to be looking for is all the segments on a given match of 20 plus 10 plus 10. This one is yes, no, 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 yes, yes, no, ooh, good, 30, yes, yes, no, and no. Now, it doesn't tell you how much DNA, but we already know how much DNA it was because you checked it off before. So the question is here, is this match a priority match to me? Yes or no? Why? The answer is yes. Why? Greater than 20, greater than 10, greater than 10. That's as easy as it comes. So let me give you an idea. Here's a quiz. Oh, they didn't tell you there was going to be a quiz, or I'm going to do a lot of it. So get ready. Okay. Here's the quiz. These are my known relatives in blue, my known cousins. Look at the amount of DNA that we share. Remember, it's 20 plus 10 plus 10, and this number should be greater than 100. But look how much DNA we share all the way back to third cousins. And look at the size of the segments that known relatives have. Okay. Now, these in red are 2 of my maternal cousins who are second cousins once removed to me. They are first cousins to each other. Look at the amount of DNA they share with me, and look at the difference in the amount of DNA that they share with me. Look at the size of the segments and look at the difference in the segment sizes of 2 first cousins who are second cousins once removed to me. Okay, and those in, as my granddaughter would say, Poiple, these are people, I don't know who they are. In sales, we call them prospects. These are the people who are my matches. According to family tree DNA, in order, based on segment size. So what I'm going to look at here, for an example, here's your quiz. I'm looking at SF, and I want you to tell me is if SF, based on the individual data I have here, the amount of DNA shared and the segment lengths of the 3 longest segments, is SF a priority match to me, yes or no? No. Why not? Where's the 20? Let's look at GN. See, I'm doing this because I want to make sure when you go look at your family tree DNA matches that you understand how to do this, right? At GN, look at their numbers, 101, 18 plus 12 plus 12. Is GN a priority match to me, yes or no? Come on, you can do this. No. Why not? No 20. Are you related to GN? Absolutely. How far back? Further back than your tree will go. The last one is PDC. Is PDC a priority match to me? Yes or no? Yes. Why? Because it fits all the criteria. Shared DNA and greater than 20 plus 10 plus 10. So here's the way it works at Family Tree DNA. This is my prioritization summary, and yours might look very similar. Over 32,000 matches that they tell me I'm related to. But only 5 share more than 100 centimorgans, and only PDC fits the formula. Now, my brothers did the same test. They have roughly the same amount. One brother has 7, but 4 people who fit the formula. And the other brother has 6, and he has 2 people that fit the formula. So the question I have for you is, why are you only focusing on you? Assuming you have siblings and you've gotten them to test, they may have better matches than you do. Just don't focus on yourself. By the way, it'll give you something else to do. So if you've tested a 23andMe, let's continue. Now, 23andMe, most people click over here at Ancestry. Well, I'm different, okay? And I'm going to tell you to go to Family and Friends. And at Family and Friends, you get your match list. Oh, 23andMe is different. They had to be difficult. 23andMe is 2 stages, 2 sets of calcs, but you can do this. Bear with me. So at 23andMe, this is my maternal first cousin, Eileen, and my paternal first cousin, Gary. But look at the amount of DNA and the number of segments shared. They're both first cousins with me. I grew up with them. I've known them, obviously, my whole life, okay? But they don't share this near the same amount of DNA with me. So don't get confused on the amount of DNA. Now, 23andMe gives us a percentage, which if you multiply by 68, would sort of give you the numbers, but I didn't say that. But you look at this, and they give you a percentage. And they also don't give you the longest block or longest segment. Oh, thanks. So we have to go find that information. So here's how we do that. Ready? You go on that page of your batches at 23andMe, and they do it by strength of relationship, which is also another way of saying the largest percentage of DNA shared. But we are Jews. We don't work that way. We work on segment lengths. So you click on the little down arrow, you open it up, and here is segments shared, and you click on it. The next thing you do is you look at the step 1 formula. Bear with me. All these formulas are in the handout, okay? They're all here. So what you're going to look at 23andMe is you can only look at the information that they give you. So because we're doing 20 plus 10 plus 10, that is 3 segments. And I'm going to give you a range. Your low-hanging fruit of unknown priority matches will share between 3 and 10 segments. Now, your known matches and your closer cousins are going to share significantly more than this. This is unknown. Okay? Oh, yeah. Ignore the cousin estimates. And we're going to be looking at the amount of DNA of 1.3% or greater. Why? Because that is equal to about 100 centimorgans. Oops. So 3 to 10 segments, smaller is better. By the way, smaller is better because the smaller number of segments, maybe the segment sizes are bigger. Okay. And then all I'm going to ask you to do is write them down. Now, I don't care if you write them down on a clipboard, you put them in a spreadsheet, you put them in Microsoft Word, put them in a PowerPoint, just put them on note cards. I don't care, but just write them down. And here's what you're going to do. You're going to get your match list. Now, here's another cheat. Ready? I like cheating. Can you tell? Things that are easier for me. Now, I got this cheat from Jennifer Mendelson. Probably all know her. She's terrific, okay? And she came up with this, I think she did, and I borrowed it. And what we're going to do is go to the match list, and I want you to go to the last page of the match list, which is probably page about 65 on the match list. The reason being is we're looking for people with 3 segments. The front of the match list is people with a lot more segments. I want to start at 3. And I'm going to look at the match list, and this is the match list. It just doesn't show who's next to it, whose names it is. And it's all I'm going to do is follow the arrows. Okay, Gil, I got 1,500 matches. This is going to take me a week to go through this. You know what? How about 30 to 45 minutes? Ready? We're looking for matches with 1.3% shared DNA and 3 segments to 10. So here's the first one. We're on the last match that has 3 segments, and they share a whopping 0.33. We want 1.3. And all I do is follow the arrows. No. Look, I'm already at 4 segments here. This goes fast. I told you. No. Well, Gil, what do you mean no? Well, it's 4 segments, but it's still not 1.3. No. Oh, that line's done. Let's keep going. Wow, look at this. I'm at 6 already. No. Here it is. 1.32. I got one. 6 segments. What do you do with this information? Write it down with their name. I mean, I'm not showing you the name, but you write it down. Write their name down. Here's another one, 1.42 and 6 segments. Write their names down. No, I'm at 8 segments now. No. Keep going. No. Yeah, here's one, 1.34. Got it. Everybody understand how to do this? You're working back to forward, or because we're Jewish, right to left. Okay. Then you take that list of people and you click on family and friends and go down to advanced DNA. Hey, you're advanced. Here we go. Advanced DNA comparison. What do you do with those names? You put them in here. You could put, I believe, 5. You have them matched to you. You click compare, and remember this formula? 23andMe uses the same formula, 20 plus 10 plus 10 plus 100, and triangulation, okay, is family tree DNA. And this is what you're going to get. It takes you to that chromosome browser. Well, a lot of you don't like chromosome browsers, so I skipped the chromosome browser. It takes you to the chromosome browser page, but at 23andMe, the chromosome browser, if you scroll down to the bottom of the page, they give you all those same tables of detailed segment data, which you can download to a spreadsheet if you want. All the detailed segment data that family tree DNA does. The same thing. Number of chromosomes, start location, end location. Now, they don't call it longest block. They don't call it segment length. They call it genetic distance in centimorgans. Why? I don't know. That's what they do. But this is your column. And we're going to look for the 20 plus 10 plus 10. Now, this is the number of SNPs, and this is whether or not it's a half or a full amount of DNA. Just segments, just ignore that. Okay, what you want to do here is go down this column and look for all the segments in the chromosome. This is all one match. Okay, and sometimes you're not going to match on a chromosome. Sometimes you're going to match in 2 places. And the question is 20 plus 10 plus 10. So the answer is yes. Wow, 37.5. Yes. No. So given this, is this person a priority match to me at 23andMe, yes or no? Yes. Why? Look at the segment lengths. They don't have one that's greater than 20. They got one that's greater than 30. And their second segment is not only greater than 10, but it's greater than 20. What this means is this person has the potential to be a reasonably close relation who might fit on your family tree. Let's continue. Here's another one. I lopped off a couple of columns you don't need. Here's the data. I want you to go down this list you can see on the screen and tell me whether this match is a priority match to me, yes or no, and why. The answer is no. Why not? A couple of good sized matches. Where's the 20? There's no 20. 23andMe said, this is an important match. It's not. Let's continue. So here's your next test. We're at 23andMe. Here are my known relatives. And again, look at the data. The amount of DNA that's shared, the number of the number of segments. Remember, I told you closer relatives are going to share more than 10, your known relatives. They share more than 1.3, and look at the size of the segments. So the ones here in light blue are the ones, I probably should have made them purple. The ones that are in light blue are my prospects. They're the ones I want to look at. So my question to you is, let's take HH2. Is HH2 a priority match to me, yes or no? No. Why not? The amount of DNA shared is not greater than 1.3. Now, HH has some pretty good segment sizes. So you may want to make HH a second level if you got nothing else to do, but they are not a priority match. I got so many things to do in my life. This is not one of them. Okay. Let's take a look at RL. Is RL a priority match to me? Yes or no, and why? Now, we may run a little long today. I hope you can stay. I will stay on and answer questions. So hang in there, all right? But it's important for you to know. Is RL a priority match to me? Yes or no? Yep. It fit all the criteria. But here's a question for you. Which one would I work on first? Would I work on RL or AK? I would work on AK, not just because it's above RL, but it shares only a little bit more DNA. It actually has less segments. Remember I said less typically means bigger. And look at the difference in the size of the segments between AK and RL. That's why AK rates higher, not because this number is higher, but the segments are bigger. Okay, let's continue. So at 23andMe, here is my prioritization summary. I have 1,525 matches. Remember, oh, Gil, it's going to take me forever. Out of all those matches, 11 have 100 centimorgans or more, and only the 5 you saw fit the formula. Can you deal with 5? Honestly, can you deal with 5? They want you to deal with 1,525. Can you deal with 5? Yes, you can do this. Let's go to my heritage. Okay, my heritage looks different. Now, my heritage, if you click over here, my heritage gives you the ability to export or download that segment data to spreadsheets. Well, not everybody wants to do that, but if you can, it's a good thing to do. You can also filter it by locations and ethnicity. You could do this kind of stuff and whether or not they have trees. So what we do, oh, here's what it looks like when you click on the 3 vertical dots. Oh, and my heritage uses, oh, it's so nice, the same formula. The beauty about triangulation at my heritage is they actually show it to you on your match page, and I'll show it to you. All right, so here is my match list at my heritage, and they do it differently, okay? So at my heritage, here is my match, and they give me both the percentage and the amount of centimorgans. They give me the segments, and they call it the largest segment which is the same as longest block, which is the same as the biggest of genetic distance of 32.9. So if you look at this one, based on this information, now you don't see here the other two segments. You only see one segment, the longest or largest one. But based on the information they give you here, here's the cheat on your match list for MyHeritage. Is this person a priority match to me? Yes or no? Why? Greater than 100, more than 20. Let's look at another one. Take the second one here, which they list as, wow, they list this person as a second cousin to a second cousin once removed. I'm like, this would be awesome. I'm Jewish. It ain't gonna be that awesome. This is the way it works. So this person is 128 centimorgans on 15 segments. And the largest is 16.3. Is this second cousin, the second cousin once removed estimated relationship, is she a priority match to me? Yes or no? Heck no. You got it. No 20. Got it? Now, when you do get a match and you click on Review DNA, you end up with not only your who you match up here, okay, but these are their matches and how they match to your matches. And therefore, if there is a triangulation, they tell you. Isn't that cool? Now, if there's no triangulation, there is no triangulation. Oh, okay. So I then click on it and it takes me to the chromosome browser. Now, I'm only showing you this because at MyHeritage, like the other two testing companies, they have the chromosome browser. But if you scroll down to the bottom and you open up each match, they give you the chromosome number, the start location, end location, and the number of centimorgans of each chromosome and the segment on the chromosome. Now, I'm not going to give you a test on this one because based on what I'm hearing, you got this. So MyHeritage is a little bit different. It has got 18,000 matches, but I have many more matches. And if we go to part 2, I'll explain a little bit about why there are so many matches here. But I still only have 28. Can you deal with 28? It's better than 18,000, especially when you could go through, as I just showed you, and eliminate. Remember, this is process of elimination. You're eliminating the ones who can't be matched to you in genealogical times. They won't fit on your tree because your tree doesn't go back that far. I mean, if you're a rabbinical family, maybe, but that's it. Manageable numbers. You could do this. Now, remember I said this was updated. This is Ancestry. They changed their screens again. Now, Ancestry is, okay, different. A lot of people don't like it. A lot of people like it. I kind of like it and don't like it. I don't like it because they don't have a chromosome browser and you have to work around that. But they have an algorithm that is called Timber that helps filter out some of the endogamy that's represented by smaller segments. Okay, so let's continue. I click on DNA and I get my match list. Now, the match list looks different. Ancestry gives you not only their estimate, but it also gives you the amount of DNA and the percentage of DNA shared. Now, at Ancestry Ancestry, if you have a relationship, if they predict it between second cousin and closer, I think you can actually accept that prediction. Okay. Now, the other part, and I didn't mention this at MyHeritage, is Ancestry tells you whether or not the people have a tree. MyHeritage does the same thing. And they may have a tree, but it is an unlinked tree, which means they have a tree, whatever size it is, and it's either private or they didn't link it to their to their DNA results. And if that's you, you need to do that. The reason you need to do that is, why are you doing all the work? Let people find you. Okay. Now, one of the reasons that this is a problem for people get frustrated. They go, look, I got this great match and there's no tree. Well, the reason there's no tree is this is my cousin Justin. He tested because I asked him to. He doesn't have a tree. I have the tree. So to find me, you would click on common ancestors and I will show up and it will show my tree. Understand how that works? Now, the other part at Ancestry is they got this little itty bitty pencil pen marker here. That's their notes section. Remember what I told you at the other companies, they all have them. MyHeritage has them, 23andMe has them, Family Tree. Put the notes in. Why? Because you're gonna forget whether or not you looked at it. I don't want to click on these people 20 times. Every time whoa, look at that person. Oh. No, I already looked at them. Okay. Now, the last item on this page is the amount of shared DNA. I want you to start out with those people 90 or greater. And you do that by clicking on the shared DNA and you change it to 90 by plopping in 90 here in the centimorgan range. Why? Because Timber, the algorithm that filters out endogamy, starts at 89. So your matches at 90 and above will not have Timber in effect. And this is your lowest hanging fruit. Can you have relatives who share 60? Absolutely. Or 40? Doubt it. 50? Maybe. But let's start with 90. Remember, this is priority matches first cut. This is not first cut, second cut, third cut. And so here is my revised match list. Okay. And you can see all of this information, but it doesn't tell you everything. So when you find a match you want to look at, you click on it right here and it opens it up. Oh, before you get there, here is the revised formula for Ancestry. Why is it different? Well, they don't give us all the information. So Ancestry formula starts out with the amount of shared DNA needs to be 90 or more. More is better. Okay, at 90 and above, there's not a lot of endogamy left, or it's there, but it doesn't really matter. Okay, could you have a relation at 60? Absolutely. But let's start with 90. You could always lower this number when you get good at this. Okay, but what's not going to change is the longest segment needs to be 20 or greater. There's a better chance of one here than there is at 60. You follow me? And then the number of segments, remember, they don't give us everything, needs to be 11 or less. But Gil, I have cousins at Ancestry and they share like 17 segments. Okay, there's an asterisk here. This is for your unknown matches, not your known matches. Okay. So again, greater than or equal to 90 plus the longest segment equal to 20. There's no chromosome browser, so we can't see the other two. And therefore, we have to use the number of segments being less than 11. Why? Because the less number of segments probably means the segments are longer. So I clicked, remember I clicked next to that person, and this is the information I get in Ancestry. They give it to you here. This is great. You just have to find it. And they tell you the amount of shared DNA and the unweighted DNA. Well, what's the difference? Okay, unweighted DNA is before Timber is applied, and shared DNA is after Timber is applied, which, if you're over 90 centimorgans, is going to be the same number. Okay. So based on this, they share 128 centimorgans, longest segment is 30. Is this person a priority match to me? Yes or no? Yes. Why? Greater than 90, greater than 20. Now, these are, they call them possible relationships, but these are the probability relationships. And so this person could be a second cousin runs remove or all these other ones, but it also could be this, less of a chance. But it also could be this, but less of a chance. Why? Remember the chart from Lara Diamond. It is a range of the amount of DNA shared for a given relationship. That's why that's here. Let's continue. Me and AK, 99 centimorgans, longest segment is 16. Yes or no? Yeah, you got this. No 20. Here's another one, 135 centimorgans, 13 segments, longest segment's 15. Yeah, I'm not going to kid you, no. But you could kind of tell it had too many segments, which means the segments are smaller. Got it? But Ancestry says there's a 50% chance this person's a second cousin once removed. No. So Ancestry, I got over 150,000 matches. I have 21,000 and change that are less than closer than fourth cousins. Really? I only got 23 that have more than 90 and only 6. Can you deal with 6? Can you deal with, you can do this. Now, GEDmatch doesn't test, but it is, if you can get your Ancestry matches to upload to GEDmatch, they will have a chromosome browser for you to use. But GEDmatch, because it works with all 4 companies, is the standard formula. And the one thing on GEDmatch I want you to do is ignore the number of generations back, because it's going to be wrong as far back as our sweet spot. Okay? So GEDmatch, of my top 1,000 matches, 41 greater than 100 and 2. Can you deal with 2? These, remember, these are not my known matches, right? I don't count those in my totals. We did it. Question and answer time. How about that? I'm going to stop sharing. Everybody's still there. Terrific.
You're still here. Are there any questions?
I ran a little long, but
very intriguing, very intriguing. Are there any questions? Anyone unmute themselves and ask a question?
Please do. Don't be shy.
I had one, but you answered it in the last 50 seconds. How do you value GEDmatch?
You know, I just signed up at GEDmatch again for, I've been on it for years and years, for tier 1 tools, because they have some new ones I wanted to try out. I don't use GEDmatch for anything really except the Ancestry matches, because I can see everything else on the other companies. And because, and I also used to manage like 20 kits, and my relatives wanted off of GEDmatch because of the police thing, but now you can opt out, and I just haven't bothered asking.
Okay, no, that's interesting.
Any other questions?
I can't see any hands up.
Well, let's see, there's 2 pages. Nope, not everybody. Eli Rabinowitz. Eli, how you doing?
Yeah, I've got
You can unmute. You can unmute.
I've got a question.
Please.
I've got a question.
I'm here.
If you
Hi,
follow
Anna.
if you've followed your family tree,
Yes.
absolutely, you think correctly.
Ah,
If you think correctly,
yes.
what's the chances of the matches matching up?
You know,
I mean, how much proof do you need?
well, what you're really hoping for is that they have a better tree than you, and it's fully documented, right? So you could just copy off theirs. it is, let's put it this way. It's not as easy as you just saw. It's not as easy to figure out how these people are related to you. Remember the ones who I said are my priority matches?
Yeah.
I can't figure out how they're related to me. Okay, my tree, and the reason being is I don't know the names of my great-grandparents' siblings and my great-great-grandparents' siblings and the maiden name of my third paternal great-grandmother. So you know, I'm not going to lie to you. This is difficult. But when I told you about my cousin Sheldon, who was tested at 23andMe, the challenge was I knew where he fit on my tree, but the DNA was telling me something different. Okay, until you go into, well, I'll tell you what, when you get to part 2, because I'm rewriting part 2. In part 2, I show you how I figured out by DNA where Sheldon does fit in my tree, even though I know he fits in my tree. But Hannah, you can, if your tree is wide enough, if you have your grandparents' siblings and your great-grandparents' siblings, and you've tested your second cousins, their matches will be the ones that show you the relationship to your great-grandparents. You follow me?
Yes.
If you haven't tested them, you're trying to do it on too small an amount of DNA.
Oh,
Okay? Did I
okay.
answer your question?
Thank you. It doesn't help.
Well, you know, I'll tell you what, I mean, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. You've all done this. This is very difficult. The fact that you've stuck to it and you worked on this is true. But my cousin Risa, I got the email last April from my cousin Risa. I had no idea who she was. And also in part 2, which I think I'm doing part 2 in a month. Am I correct? In part 2, I will show you the case study of how I figured out who Risa was. Okay, I went backwards. I used the DNA, and then it forced me to look at specific possible relationships and use my genealogical skills. I'll show you how to do that. And by the way, before I forget, so part 2 is in a month. Am I correct?
February the 27th. I'm putting
Okay.
it on the chat now.
I better finish writing it because I blew it up and I changed the whole thing. And I have, this is really bad. I have 110 slides that I have to shrink down to like 47. Okay. It's easier to edit than it is to write from scratch. But if you're going to be ready for part 2 is going to go into a lot of detail. It's going to go into a lot of minutia, because after you do what I just showed you to do, you're going to say, oh, I got a question for Gil. I ran into this. Oh, I got another question. I ran into this. And I cover those questions because they're new brick walls for you. So you have to do this exercise to be ready for part 2. Okay. Next question. Eli, how are you?
Yeah, I'm here. So I'm in Perth. We're 3 hours behind Melbourne. Okay.
I know. How are you?
Good, you know. Just a query about regular regular genealogy. So if you're a member of a rabbinic tree like Katz and Ellenbogen, part of the problem is that you've got family everywhere, haven't you? So
you're just like non-Jewish people. You have family everywhere.
So how do you get excited about DNA when all these people are coming up on your rabbinic tree?
You have to ask yourself your question, right? You have to ask the question to yourself, which is, what is your own personal goal out of this, right? I actually had somebody told me they were done with their family tree. I go, are you kidding? I don't think I'm ever going to be done. That's why when I retired, people said to me, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to do genealogy. What am I going to do? Right? I didn't know I was going to be doing all these webinars and stuff. But so the rabbinical family stuff, you have to set a goal. So when you achieve that goal, you can cut it off and then you can set yourself another goal. Okay, because otherwise it's kind of like when you're in business, all the emails that come in, you work on the one that came in last. That's the one you worked on first, right? And you meanwhile have all this other stuff that you have to do. I mean, I found today I have 3 emails from 6 months ago that I haven't answered for people. I have to do that. Okay, I hope that helps. Right? No magic here. Alan,
Gil,
I want to hear this. I want to hear the story.
forget the story. One of them, I think one of the most important things you said today was one of the earliest things you said today. DNA is a science. It doesn't lie.
Right.
So if we use your formulas, depending on which particular company we've tested with, and you get someone who matches there, you know before you start that person is related to you.
Correct.
So if you come from that standpoint, you're now trying, if I understand correctly, you're now trying to prove that relationship rather than suspect it's a relationship. You're actually coming at it as if it's something that's a given. You're just trying to prove it.
Yeah, I mean,
In my own case, when I tested a year ago, I got an 1800 plus match to someone that I had never heard of, and I had no documentation. So I use your formula, and this is obviously an unproven match that I need to talk about. And the reality is, if you are lucky enough to be able to converse somehow with that match, if they'll answer your message and then go to email or answer a phone call or whatever, you can explore where the match actually is, even without documentation. Because in my case, there was simply no documentation, but by a process of elimination, we were able to confirm the match.
It's a process of elimination. Israel Pickholz is a good friend of mine in Israel. And he said a number of years ago at a conference, he goes, you personally have to decide. I know there's a genealogical proof standard. Oh, I'm going to get text messages and everything, but I know there's a proof standard, but at some point to you, there's something that's good enough. Okay. I mean, for years, my paternal grandfather and his 2 brothers came to the United States within about 5 years of each other. And I couldn't find the younger brother. Well, you know, we don't really care how things are spelled. If it's close, it's good enough. And I found this guy, and it was very close. And he was within a year, right? And he went into Ellis Island in New York. And he comes from, Wallonia. And it was good enough. 5 years later, I found the real documentation of his brother, and it wasn't this guy. So all these people go, I have documentation. That's nice. Remember what I said to you. DNA, like genealogy, right? It's subject to interpretation. You can interpret the data incorrectly. But what I want you to do is not look at everyone over and over and over again. But Alan, you're absolutely correct. Okay. Martin.
Hi, I'd just like to follow on from Alan's question, the previous question. So
Please.
My DNA done at MyHeritage, and then I had it done after that at Ancestry.
Yep.
And you got some significantly different results from each of them. So following on from Alan's question.
Me too.
So the question is, who do I believe? One was 100% Ashkenazi, which I would have thought, and the other was a bit of British Isles and a bit of North African. So who do I believe?
For the ethnicity estimate.
Yes.
Okay. You can believe either one, because MyHeritage has reference populations that Ancestry does not. And that's why MyHeritage is broken down into smaller groups, especially for Jews, that Ancestry lumps us all into European Jewish. To answer your question?
Yeah,
okay.
Thank you.
Yep. Next.
All quiet.
All quiet. Wow.
I can't believe that it's all quiet. Surely someone's got a question of Gil.
Okay,
Huh?
so here's wait a minute. There's some in the chat. Hang on here. Okay. You'll see
I have a question. Oh,
please.
Just following on from Martin, you say there are four, there are 4 ancestry sites to do
Yes.
DNA testing.
Yep.
Are you suggesting that we test all 4?
Yes. Now, from an ethnicity standpoint, who cares? Right? But from a match standpoint, remember, you don't know where your match tested at. My cousin Sheldon tested at 23andMe, right? I had to beg him that I could take his data and put it someplace else because I couldn't find us on 23andMe because we share so little DNA as third cousins. Okay, so here's what you can do. You have to test at Ancestry, which is the largest Jewish database in DNA. It is not family tree DNA. Okay, and you know this because I have 157,000 matches in Ancestry and I have 30,000 in family tree DNA. So you have to test at Ancestry because they won't let you upload your data from someplace else. Now, wait till it's on sale. Okay, which should be
every 3 months.
Every 3 months, but do you guys celebrate Valentine's Day like we do?
Yeah, it'll come
again. Yeah. There should be one at Valentine's Day. Okay, then the next big one will be Easter. Then the next big one will be DNA Day, which is like April 24th. Then there's Mother's Day and Father's Day. So you tested Ancestry, and then you could take Ancestry's data. You can download Ancestry's data to your computer. It's called the raw data. You can then upload that to MyHeritage and Family Tree DNA if you've not tested there, or to GEDmatch if you wish. Okay, and you pay a fraction of the amount of money. So at Family Tree DNA, I think it's $19, and at MyHeritage it's $25, or I could hold those backwards. And then you have to test at 23andMe because they won't let you upload either. and 23andMe is going to be the most expensive, okay, because they also give you all this health stuff. It was great. They told me I might be lactose intolerant. Really? Okay. Right. Thanks. Right. I might have wet earwax. Okay. Thanks. Right. And then they say, do you want to know if you are positive for the genetic variations we tested on Alzheimer's and dementia? And I said, hell no. I don't know. I don't want to know, right? Because if I test positive, I'm just going to worry about it all the time. That's
Rosa, to answer your question specifically,
yes,
the half brother I found on Ancestry, but he had tested on MyHeritage 12 months earlier and I hadn't. So had he not decided a year later to test on Ancestry, I still wouldn't have found him. He wouldn't have found me.
Amazing. I have
you both need to test on 23andMe because there might be another half brother you don't know about.
Well, I'm convinced there are plenty out there. I'm now on a search to find the 200 I've got out there that I don't know.
I've got another question. It's probably a red herring, but okay. I come from Russian heritage. Great grandparents and I'm having a lot of trouble trying to find people. Is there any inroads to getting more data from that area?
Non-DNA, mean genealogical?
Genealogical DNA.
Yeah. Have you seen this? Where is your family from?
Russia, Belarus. I'm having a.
It's okay.
No, St. Petersburg.
All right, so it's actually really Russia.
Yes.
Okay, so there is data in the Russian Federation. I don't have family there. That's not my strong suit. Are you? Have you looked at the Jewish Gen website?
Yes.
JewishGen.org. There might be a special interest group, a SIG.
Okay.
Okay, that might be available. And look and see if there's a Facebook group. But the other one would be, if you're on Facebook, go to Tracing the Tribe and ask the question, what are the best resources available for genealogy resources available to find records for St. Petersburg. Okay, try that.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Any other questions? Comments? How many people, I'm just curious, how many people use spreadsheets? Okay, so if we develop, a number of us are looking at developing spreadsheets. I have one, but it's got like 47 columns, but it's a spreadsheet that allow you to just track all this information. Would that be useful to people where you can just kind of plug it in?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And last question. Yeah, this is it. All right. I got to see if you can see this. This is what some people call a flow chart or process map. Okay. Any interest in something like this to follow how to do something? Okay. Process map basically says you got to do this. So if you go down here, if it's yes, go over here and do this. If it's no, go over here and do this. Right? So for example, it would tell you longest segment needs to be 20 or greater. If yes, proceed over here to the next segment. If it's no, stop. Right? What we're trying to do is figure out a little bit about how people learn, because what we're giving you is way too much information. Right? I mean, this is very confusing.
Gil, I've got a question for you.
Yes.
Do you believe that going forward 10 years, there'll still be the 4 companies out there doing DNA testing for genealogical purposes, or do you believe there'll be a rationalization?
Well, MyHeritage was sold last year. Family Tree DNA was sold last year. 23andMe bought themselves back. Ancestry has been sold a couple of times. I have to tell you, I had no idea. I mean, because I couldn't imagine 10 years ago. You have to remember 10 years ago, there wasn't any autosomal DNA testing. All you had was Y-DNA and mitochondrial DNA, right? And if you're Jewish, your mitochondrial DNA, which is what you get from your mother, and women pass on to their moms, pass on to their children, okay? You know, it was all we had for women to test. And the challenge was, if you are part of the 4 founding mothers of Ashkenazi Judaism, you're related to 3/4 of the people in the Jews in the world. Now, people like me, my mitochondrial DNA is Chinese. Okay, and that's really, number one, it's really cool. Number two, you think we have conspiracy theories here in the United States. There was a lot of conspiracy theories about this Chinese DNA, Genghis Khan and all this stuff. But there's been studies done and published that show that either people were, these matches with this mitochondrial DNA were Chinese from Eastern China or Taiwan, or they're Ashkenazi Jews from Belarus, Ukraine, or Poland. That's it. Nobody else. But then when autosomal DNA came in, we're all looking at it. We all had dinner at one of the conferences. It was great. And we got the autosomal DNA, and not one of us is a close match. Not one of us. Why? Because this, I don't know, 15th, 18th great-grandmother, whoever she was, bless her, that's how we're related. We're not related any other way. I mean, that we're aware of. And if you want to know about Y-DNA, just so you know, I have a guy who is documented on my family tree as a third cousin. And I asked him to test his DNA, right? And he is on direct line on my paternal side. And he goes, I don't know if that's going to show up. And I said, sure it is. Because my last name is Bardige. It was originally Bardige, A at the end. Well, his last name is Bardige and originally was Bardige. And he's like, well, I don't know. My family's from a town called Bardige. Well, my family's from a town called Bardige, and Bardige apparently is Yiddish for Bardige. And this guy's still not sure. So we do the test, and on Y-DNA, we are an exact match. And on autosomal DNA, we're third cousins. Yeah, it said we're second cousins to fourth cousins, but we're third cousins. Now, I'm an exact match to 3 other people on the Y-DNA. We don't share the same shtetl. We don't share the same surname. We don't even share the same countries. And we're more distant on the autosomal side, right? I told you, none of this stuff is going to be easy. But, so the answer is no is kind of no, yes is yes. But how are you related? Any other questions? Eli?
Yeah, I think one of the challenges I have is that when I find matches on these different programs is to connect with a person, because in many cases they don't reply. What the hell are they doing? Yes, what the hell are they doing there? If they're trying to find out if they match up with me and then they don't reply.
That's the fourth slide in part 2.
Okay.
I can tell you, they have very good reasons why they did, and I forgot about the fact that they may have died, which is one reason that they haven't replied, right? I forgot about that part, but there's really good reasons. And it's everything from, like Martin was looking at his ethnicity. Some people tested for the ethnicity, right? And then they get all these matches, and I get matches from people I don't know who they are. So I just ignore them. They ignore the emails, or they turned off the email notification or never turned it on. So they haven't gotten your email to know, right? Paul, go ahead.
Yeah, just to comment on that. I don't do much in the way of DNA testing, but a colleague of mine in England has done a fair bit. And as a result of it, in the last month, I've now been able to make contact with somebody in Houston, Texas, who's my 5th cousin twice removed.
Wonderful.
Excellent.
And did they have more information on their tree than you did?
Oh, well, I've been able to give him some about his ancestry that's on my side of the tree. And I can trace him now back to my great-great-great-grandfather, which he didn't know about before.
I don't have a case study for this, but I have a 6th cousin. He's on my tree. We share a paternal 5th great grandfather. It's so cool. And I met him when I was in Israel, and it's very cool. And he tested at 23andMe. He doesn't fit the formula either because he's so far back, right? Remember, the formula's in the sweet spot. He and I are 6th cousins. We share a 5th great grandparent. He doesn't fit the formula either, but we share one long 37 centimorgan segment. And he shares it with my brothers and with me and my paternal cousins. I mean, different amounts of it, but so we know that that's a Bardige segment. We got that. Okay. Yep. Martin, go ahead.
Yeah. So I'm trying to track down people with the same surname as me, and I'm trying to find out whether or not they are related. I'm not quite sure the best way to do it, because one of them is actually an interesting character who won the Nobel Prize, Baruch Blumberg. And we have a large family who settled in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And the other is also Blumberg, the 2 Blumberg twin sisters, Dorothy, and I can't remember the other one's name, who did a lot of work to help in World War II, mathematicians. And I'm trying to track each of them down to see. They both come from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And I'm trying to see, and I'm not quite sure how to approach that, to see if we're on the same family tree. Is there
have you reached out to the JGS in Philadelphia? They know all about they may know those people or know families of those people. Each of the JGS has a lot of expertise about their local area. They might be able to help you with that. The challenge with DNA is it only works if the people you're looking for test.
Yeah.
If they haven't tested, you kind of have to wait. I mean, I waited 7 years for Sheldon to test. I mean, I was begging him to test. All right. And then I went to his daughters and tried to get them to test. And they said, Daddy won't let us test. These girls are in their 40s, right? Daddy won't let them test. I'm like, okay.
Gil, you're 100% right. They have to test, and B, they don't have to be on the 4th slide in your part 2. They have to actually look.
Well, it's true. And then the other challenge, and I don't know if you have this, I have it. Doesn't anybody have a better tree than I do of my matches? I mean, honestly, right? Can't somebody tell me about a relative that I don't know about? Like my 8th great grandmother, right? I know her first name by process of elimination is Bracha. So my mother is named after, right? I found in the United States, we have Social Security. I found my grandmother's application for Social Security, and it asks name of your father, name of your mother, name of her father. She's got him, right? A nice Yiddisher name, Oscar Berman, okay, who never came here, right? And name of mother, unknown. How do you not know your mother's name? I mean, I don't care how old, I know, I'm 67 years old. I know my mother's name. Right? I know my mother's maiden name. I know it before it was changed, right? So if I have anything, I would really, really like to find a relative who has a fully documented tree with stuff that I don't have. And then a very good friend of mine said, wouldn't it be better if we had a time machine and we could go back in time to go see those relatives? And I said, won't work for me. They said, why not? I said, I don't speak Yiddish. They won't understand me at all. Right.
Bill,
any other questions? Yes.
Bill, in your estimation, what percentage of people who've undertaken DNA tests are actually interested in genealogy and haven't been given it as a present by someone?
I don't really know, but it's not a good, I mean,
that's part of the issue, isn't it?
I mean, honestly, it's kind of like I'm trying to figure out after I'm gone, who's going to take care of my tree, right? And all this stuff I've been doing. And my daughter says to me, Dad, I'll do it. And my daughter's really smart, but I said, honey, you don't have the patience. I mean, you don't have the, what do you call it? The drive. You just don't have the passion for it. And, so, I mean, I tested and I had to get my brothers to test. I mean, so I've got 1 out of 20 is what, 6%, something like that, 5%, right? My math's not so good. See, I give you formulas and my math is, but it's, so to answer your question, I think it's a very small amount.
And I think that's part of the issue, which I'm sure you're going to raise in part 2 in a month's time, everybody.
Yeah.
February 27, same time, same channel.
But do your homework, because part two, we're going to talk about things like, why don't people respond to you? We're going to talk about pile-up sections. If I have time, I'm going to talk about DNA clusters. I'm going to talk about what do those second-level matches look like, okay? But we're going to get into the weeds. I mean, and because what you've got is what you got now is the easy stuff. Now is question like, I'm at Ancestry, and I've got a person who shares one segment with me that's 54 centimeters long. Wow, that's really good. Maybe not. We'll talk about that. Right?
Excellent.
Okay, so we're going to get into the weeds. Do your homework, and yeah, in the handout is my email address. People email me all the time with questions because you just sleep on this and go, and look at the handout before you email me. Try a few things, but if you have questions, send me an email or bring it up at the next thing.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
It's been entertaining. It's been interesting. Good. It's been informative, and I can't speak for everybody else, even though I am. But I'm looking forward to part 2 because my head's spinning about part 1. So I'll need the month off in between. Thank you all for attending.
I'll tell you what, I'm working on part 3 too.
Oh my God.
I got too much stuff, and I'm going to try something. Can I ask a question? Does everyone know the difference between the terms gross and net?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I'm thinking about using the terms gross and net. Oop, my light just ran out of batteries. Gross and net as applied to the amount of DNA to help filter out a little bit more endogamy. And it would allow people to use more of the tools that are online, because we can't use a lot of the tools that are online because of endogamy. Okay?
Yep, I think that's
Thank you,
perfectly
everyone.
acceptable. Thank you, and thank you all for attending, especially those members of Vic Gum who tuned in this morning. Welcome. We hope to see you at more presentations as well. Thank you all for your attendance, and Max will be sending out the handout. And Gil, wonderful. Just a
I'm gonna go
wonderful
make-
presentation.
I'm going to go make dinner. Thank you.
I'm having breakfast.
Bye.
Thank you.